What's happening, all you minties? Uncanny Omar here from Near Mint Condition, the home of collected editions. And join me today for an advanced look at all these books coming out from Marvel Comics this week. So, let's get started. Before getting started, I want to give a huge thank you to David Gabriel and the fine folks at Marvel for sending us advanced copies of all of these books. All these books are due out in the direct market and book market on November 22nd or 23rd, depending on where you get your books. So we've got all kinds of collected editions today. A couple of epic collections, one of them is a reprint, a Marvel Masterworks, and some trades in a very unique book that we're going to be taking a look at first. As always, I put timestamps in the description of the video so you can jump around in case you're more interested in a particular title or don't want to know anything about another. And before going any further, please don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe, and ring that bell for notifications to let you know when our videos are going live. So, let's go ahead and get started. Okay, first up is this Fortnite Marvel Zero War. This is a standard size hardcover, and it does not have a dust jacket. And the book retails for $29.99. It is, again, a hardcover, and the art is on board. Great tribute to both franchises. From major spoilers, there's a blurb there. Here's what the end paper looks like. And Fortnite Zero War. This one here is printed at the Sheridan printer in Versailles, Kentucky. Yes, where I used to live. This collects issues 1 through 5 of the Fortnite Marvel Zero War, and it has 160 pages. So, I'm just going to come clean. I've never played Fortnite. I know what it is. I used to play Halo. I used to play things like Call of Duty and Doom and things like that when I had more time. But no, I have not played Fortnite. And I feel like you may have to have played a little bit of Fortnite to understand some of the things that are happening. But Christos Gage does an amazing job of throwing you in this world and kind of catching you up to speed on a lot of things. And he's not the only one that's writing it. It's also Donald Mustard that is writing this particular series, and he comes from Epic Games. All right, and then you have Sergio Davila and Sean Parsons doing the artwork while the colors are supplied by Edgar Delgado. So the story is pretty simple. Spider-Man, through a series of flashbacks, is trying to recruit this gentleman right here. With a secret identity. He has a patch, and he's hanging out in Madripoor. Who could it be? Yes, you guessed it. It's Wolverine. I'm not sure why he's got his patch on, because this feels like it doesn't really take place during the Marvel era that is going on right now. Not Marvel Now. I had to correct myself. No, not the Marvel Now era, but the Marvel what's happening right now. I feel like a freaking part of Spaceballs by saying that. But it gets a little bit confusing when the actual era of Marvel was known as Marvel Now. So Spider-Man is trying to recruit Wolverine to go and help him out in this other world. He's working with Agent Jones and the Seven to try to end this big war that's been going on. So it is the world of Fortnite. So think of things like Secret Wars that is stuck in this big battle. And the Seven, these are the characters, are there to normalize reality. However, there's a little fragment of the 0 point that was sent to the Marvel Universe, and that's how Spider-Man got involved. So now Spider-Man's working with Agent Jones, like I mentioned, and the Seven to try to help end this war. So we see him devise a plan, and they decide to send Agent Jones and Spider-Man and what is his name? The Imagine back to the Marvel Universe to recruit some allies, and that is the plan. And another thing that they need to get, because there's always a MacGuffin with these type of stories, is to get that Zero Shard back. They needed to power the mechs that are gonna help them turn the tide. So, like I mentioned, it's not a really specific time when this takes place, even though this is the newer lineup of the Avengers during Jason Aaron's run. So I will say that this is a really interesting series on who to decide to recruit for this war and take them to this other world. I do love the fact that the entire issue 1 works as a flashback as to what's happened, how Spider-Man got into this world. There's an homage image right there. And how they ended up back here to try to recruit superheroes. But I love the fact that Wolverine just says, yeah, all right, let's go, when this pretty redhead is talking to him. He's always had a thing for redheads. But that's basically what this is. It's a big crossover between these two events. Now, if you're familiar with the Marvel characters, you're going to be a little more confused. If you're familiar with Fortnite, I think you're going to get more out of this than the people that are more familiar with Marvel. Because there's a lot of just editor notes all over the place, talking about different seasons. Let me see if I can find some. Talking about the giant mecha fighting this giant kaiju, and that's at the end of Fortnite Chapter 1, Season 3. And there are lots of footnotes like that, and they're basically about Fortnite and when they took place. I assume those are different updates to the game. I'm not sure. I've not played it. But they are all over the place. So I think if you're coming in from the world of Fortnite and trying to get into Marvel Comics, this is perfect. Because you know a lot about Fortnite already, and now you get introduced to these characters. However, if you're trying to go and get into Fortnite because of this book, that you might find a little bit more difficult because they throw a bunch of characters at you. As a matter of fact, the war is kind of a little hard to understand. It's very complicated at first, but the more you read it, the more fun you have with it. I actually thought this series got better and better. I didn't think the first issue had a strong start. By the end of the last issue, I was like, okay, I kind of see where this is going. Of course, you throw in Doctor Doom in there. How can you not tell a multiverse type of story without Doom? All right, let's look at the extras. All the way in the back are variant covers. Some of them are thumbnails and some of them are splash pages. That's a beautiful cover right there. Is that Fortnite? Maybe the background is Fortnite? Some of these look like they're just variants for the regular series. Except they add a Fortnite character in there. Maria Wolf's art, man. That art is really growing on me. So this also collects the Nexus War, which is just a little story here by Donny Cates and Greg Land. And how Thor, his particular Thor in his run, gets involved with the Fortnite story. But that's it. Yeah, this book, again, has 160 pages, retailing for $29.99. It is a hardcover. And there is a code in the back, too, for Fortnite cosmetic items. I think there's 5 of them. Spider-Gwen, Gwenverse. So this is the latest Spider-Gwen story. She is now going as Ghost Spider, remember? But I guess they couldn't call this one Spider-Gwen, Ghost Spider-Gwenverse. Then it gets kind of confusing. Kind of reminded me of those Batman Long Halloween, the sequel, Dark Victory, I think was the title. But by the way, the cover has changed, because I remember this one here, the issue number 1, was the cover that was solicited. But this is the cover that they were going with for the trade paperback. This collects the 5-issue miniseries, Spider-Gwen, Gwenverse. It retails for $17.99, and it has 128 pages. Now, if you're familiar with the concept of Spider-Man, Spider-Verse, it's the same thing. It's a bunch of Gwen Stacy's from different Earths coming together for, well, their purpose is a little bit different than Morlun and his family trying to eat them. They're coming together, there's a little bit of a twist in here. And it's all kinds of Gwen Stacy's. They're not just spider totems. There's a Captain America Gwen Stacy. There is a Thor Gwen Stacy. There's an Iron Man, or I guess Iron Lady Gwen Stacy, from different Earths. And they're coming together to team up. Now, there is a force at play here. There's definitely somebody that is pulling the strings, and you don't know exactly who that is. And there's a couple of surprising characters here that show up. There is a Wolverine Gwen Stacy. But one of the biggest surprises to me was a character from the Heroes Reborn universe, and that's Night Gwen. Night Gwen ends up showing up through this miniseries. Yes, this character right here. Now, at first, you're thinking, okay, obviously she's the one behind everything. Obviously, Night Gwen has to be the villain that's pulling the strings, and they all have to get along to fight her. But there's a couple of twists in here. This is written by Tim Seeley. All of this is drawn by Yodi Nishijima. But yeah, this is the character that shows up. And I was really surprised to see her because she was in a couple of the backup issues of the Heroes Reborn. And I'm talking about the new Heroes Reborn crossover by Jason Aaron. Came out last year. It's just recently been released in omnibus format. And speaking of omnibus format, people have asked me to ask Marvel if they could have added this to the Ghost Spider omnibus, and they said no. Now, sometimes they say no because okay, well, this already has too many issues. But sometimes they're like, oh, we already have plans for maybe a third one, so maybe that's what's going on here. There's going to be enough material later on to have a third Spider-Gwen omnibus. Let's check out the extras because I really like the variants here. Okay, so here's some of the variants. Those are cute, but the ones that I really like are coming up here in a second. This is the Greg Land variants. They're all homage covers. All different characters that she portrays. I really like these Peach Momoko design variants. They are adorable. I don't know what it is. Man, I don't know how fast that lady is, too. That's my favorite one. That is so cute. There is a guide to show you how to read Spider-Gwen in case you don't have the Omnis or plan on getting them and you're just strictly a trade paperback reader. Kind of guide you to where you should read Spider-Gwen. However, some of those are out of print. So, it kind of helps some people, though. Carnage Volume 1 in the Court of Crimson. Now, this is the latest Carnage series. This collects Carnage 1 through 4, but it's the 2022 series. It's got the Carnage 30th Anniversary Special in here. So, this one is going to be a little hard to talk about because this happens after the events of Absolute Carnage and Extreme Carnage. So, if you haven't read those, you may not know the status of what's going on with the symbiotes of Carnage and Cletus Cassidy. So just in case, a little bit of minor spoilers for that stuff. I'm not going to go into detail as to how it happened or anything, but I do want to give you a heads up in case you haven't read those, because this takes place in the present. It doesn't take place in the past. So just in case, minor spoilers. All right, let's keep going. The book, by the way, has 160 pages and retails for $17.99. It is written by Ron V, doing most of the story in here. There's a prelude right there by Salvador La Roca, but most of the arc is done by Francesco Mana and Roge Antonio. There's a couple of side stories, including one by the co-creator of Carnage, David Michelinie, Ron Lim supplying the artwork, and then Homecoming, which is a creepy story too by Philip Kennedy Johnson. So, what is going on with Carnage? What's up? What are the changes? Alright, so this is of course the spawn of Venom. And during this time, Carnage and Cletus Cassidy have separated. The Carnage symbiote has separated itself from its longtime host, Cletus Cassidy, and it's bonded to the Extreme... What is it? The Extremebiot? Or Extremebiot? It's a combination of pretty much the Iron Man Extremis armor and one of Null's dragons, the symbiote dragons. I promise I'm not going to go into spoilers as to how that happened, but that's what we're looking at here. So this is the first time the symbiote has been alone for a long time. And now Carnage is setting out to find his purpose, or its purpose. I don't know what they go by. But this is really interesting because in the prelude, we get to see him visit Hydro Man. Now, immediately I thought, okay, really? Hydro Man as the host? That's going to be really weird. But it's not. He wants to absorb Hydro Man's powers and use him as part of his symbiote and as part of his master plan. Who he's really kind of keeping an eye on, or he's crossing paths with, is this serial killer known as the Artist. What is his name? Kenneth. This is what's going to happen later on. And there's some disturbing scenes in here, like this right here. I thought, what happens in the next page? I was like, man, definitely Silence of the Lambs vibes. And this is also where we meet the homicide detective Jonathan Shade. And he's investigating all these crimes. He's trying to figure out what exactly is going on. And everything points to the serial killer known as the Artist. And as you find out, all this again in issue number 1, the Artist is doing all of this. He's committing all these gruesome murders because he seeks to become Carnage's new host. And then you see the other side of things with Shade, Detective Shade, dedicating his life to finding and capturing this serial killer. Now, he doesn't know that there's Carnage out there, the character known as Carnage, but he's about to find out, because this goes down a dark path. Now, I think this is an ongoing series because when I read it, I was like, oh, that didn't wrap up. I think there's some couple of loose ends they could definitely go back to. And yes, this is rated teen plus. Yeah, teen plus. But it definitely has some mature vibes to it. It's dark. A lot of the stories in here get pretty dark. And it's not just the main story, also the backup stories too. Actually, let's look at those. I just wanted to say one more thing. Carnage is going everywhere to try to absorb these powers, including crossing the 9 realms. He's going over to the different realms. All right, now let's look at these other stories in here. This is the Homecoming story, which again has a lot of dark elements, but the one that I wanted to talk about is A Lesson in Blood. And this is written by David Michelinie. It's a short story. The artwork here is by Ron Lim, looking a lot more cartoony than what I'm used to. It's probably because of the inks by Roberto Poggi. Israel Silva is doing the colors. So pretty much in this story, David Michelinie comes back to write the character that he helped co-create with Mark Bagley. And it feels like he's never left the book. I love that about writers. They can just come back, and it's like talking to an old friend. You don't miss a beat. You carry on the conversation from where you last left. Even though a lot of things have happened, this story kind of, it really does fit. It's about a juvenile delinquent asking Carnage to commit murder on his behalf. And you get a little bit of a background story as to why Carnage is the way that he is. And I thought that was really cool, and I want to see more of that stuff. Now, all the way in the back. Oh, this is the Ty Templeton story right here, the What If. Here are some variant covers. It's Ron Lim, David Nakayama, and Maria Wolf, who again has a really cool style. Really digging it. Now, someone's going to help me do the next book.
All right, Amazing Spider-Man Volume 2 by Zeb Wells and John Romita Jr. However, issue number 6, which is issue number 900, is drawn by Ed McGuinness. And it has, how many pages, baby?
135.
135, thank you, my lovely assistant. 135 pages. Retails for $17.99, rated T for teen. And I honestly was not aware that issue 6 was the renumbering or whatever, rebranding of issue 900.
Legacy number.
Legacy number. Thank you, my lovely assistant, Uncanny Omar.
This is my
Once
show.
again. Also, I was unaware that it was a big to-do, or it was supposed to be, because it's Peter's surprise party, birthday bash, and things go wrong, and I was confused. And there's humor, and I mean, Ed McGuinness's awesome art style, but I was really confused from reading volume 1, where it was all a linear story, it was serious, and so I could see, like, taking a comic relief break, but just honestly, I was confused. Alright, but to the title of the trade, Sinister 6, the trade is named New Sinister 6 because there is a new spin on the Sinister 6. And as you can see, somehow Doc Ock's arms play a role. It's kind of like become a character of its own, like Doctor Strange's cape. Alright, and as we're looking at the extras, I do want to mention that Norman Osborn does show up, and I like that part. But I don't want to give away what happens, and love this variant because I love the minimalist, just a couple of tones style. Look at all that webbing. Oh, at New York Comic Con, we were attending a panel with Humberto Ramos. He was a really cool guy. He was really nice. This, I'm not quite sure what to think about it. You know what I mean? Weak, weak, nudge, nudge. Know what I mean? Know what I mean? Okay, I'm gonna stop with a joke.
We have come to that time of the video where you pause the video to check out the spines of all the books coming out this week. So here they all are. And my time to remind you all to smash that like button and subscribe and ring that bell for notifications. All of that does help with our YouTube algorithm and our channel keep growing. Alright, let's keep going. Han Solo and Chewbacca. Volume 1, The Crystal Run, Part 1. I love that title. Now, this here collects the first 5 issues of Star Wars, but more importantly, collects Star Wars Life Day, and it's the first 5 issues of Star Wars, Han Solo, and Chewbacca. Now, if you're current with the Star Wars comics in the Marvel Universe, you're probably asking yourself, how in the world is Han Solo here? He's supposed to be frozen in carbonite, because remember, during this time, in Marvel Comics, the stories of Star Wars are set between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. Well, lucky for you, this story takes place in the past, even before A New Hope. So written by Mark Guggenheim, David Messina doing the artwork, and Alex Sinclair's colors. And then you have Life Day supplied by different writers. You have Steve Orlando, Jody Hauser, Justina Ireland, and Kevan Scott with different artists, including Georges Genti, who I always said it's a really good, unique art style that can make cartoony characters look like actors. I don't know how he does it, but 160 pages, $17.99, and some of the covers are on the opposite side of the standard edition covers. So again, all of this taking place in the past. Just keep that in mind, because I know it gets some confusing. So this is pretty much the story of Han Solo and Chewbacca and how they embark on different heists. During this time, they are working for Jabba the Hutt. So Jabba the Hutt, after a particular heist, hires them again to go and do something. Now, this something is pretty simple. It's cracking a safe in order to steal an urn that contains the ashes. Well, you can find out for yourself who the ashes belong to. Now, there is one catch. The person that has to go with them on this particular mission is this guy right here, Greedo. Now, Jabba the Hutt, of course, thinks that this is the first time Han Solo and Greedo have met, but according to their conversation, they have met in the past. I love that. I love how just Han Solo has been everywhere. And when I mean everywhere, I mean everywhere. Including the planet Corellia. That's where he's from. And that's where he sets out in this story. He has to go back to his home planet of Corellia. There's flashbacks of all the things that he left behind. There might even be a family reunion here. And you're left thinking, well, and I'm not spoiling anything for beyond even the first issue. You're left thinking, okay, is that really who the character claims to be? Or is it somebody that's crazy or somebody that's trying to take advantage of Han? But to me, this was a really fun story. I really enjoyed this. And Mark Guggenheim's his script is so on point. It really sounds like Han Solo, the character. There's even a bounty hunter that is after them, because that's not going to be that easy to steal something like that. This guy right here. And there's a couple of twists and turns. Of course, there's several betrayals, and it's Star Wars, so you know what type of fun it is. This was really good. And while I wasn't the biggest fan of the Han Solo movie, I think it was just called Solo, right? I think this type of story would have fit better. And Messina's artwork, he does a solid job and really goes with that young Harrison Ford version of Han Solo that we all have grown to know and love. Now, the life story, again, written by several people and drawn by several people. It's a holiday, so this came right around the right time. It's a holiday celebration. But it's never that easy in the world of Star Wars. The extras, you saw some of the variants in the back. And this may spoil something of a character showing up in here. But yeah, most of these are done in thumbnails, the ones all the way in the back. But in between issues, they are full splash pages. Iron Fist. The Fury of Iron Fist. This is volume 1 of the Iron Fist Epic Collections. I don't even know if they'll ever make a 2, maybe a modern Epic. But this collects his early appearances, everything from his first appearance until the title was merged with Power Man and they became Heroes for Hire. So this collects issues 15 through 25 of Marvel Premiere, and then when he got his own title, all 15 issues. Of course, issue 15 is when it was canceled, and Marvel Team Up 63 to 64 to wrap up some of those loose ends. So here he is. This is what started it all. The artwork here, of course, by the legendary Gil Kane. And who's the writer? And Roy Thomas, of course, was doing this a lot at the time. That he was pretty much creating characters, and because he was editor, he would leave for somebody else to come and write. But he did write the first issue. And I like the way I've always thought that too, that the first few issues are written in this really interesting narrative, first-person perspective of Danny right here, and his origin, how he came to be, how he got these Iron Fist powers. So this is definitely a must-have for people that have ever been curious about the character of Danny Rand, about the power of Iron Fist, and it's all his early appearances all in one collection. So this here, I think Larry Hama started drawing it as of issue number, let's see here, the 16th issue. Yeah, Larry Hama becomes the artist. A young Larry Hama. Len Wein now supplying the writing, and then Len Wein, of course, ends up leaving the book too, eventually. But Doug Mensch takes over, and Larry Hama still drawing the book. I love that. I love that Larry Hama was drawing this. He was an artist before he became a writer, and before that, he was a musician and a movie star. Larry Hama, man of all traits. But yes, all of this sets up the character of Danny Rand, tells you his origin story, shows you a few of his enemies, which aren't really connected to the Marvel Universe, with the exception of Batroc. But most of the time he's fighting martial artists or ninjas. Here's Warhawk. I think that's his first appearance. It's a character that later shows up in the pages of X-Men, Uncanny X-Men. And now Chris Claremont has taken over the Marvel Premiere book. Pat Broderick's taken over Larry Hama's art. Finally, Danny got popular enough with the readers that they demanded his own title. And sure enough, he got it with issue number 1 here. I believe that looks like Gil Kane. But he gets to fight Iron Man. And this is written by Claremont. And he's working with a young Canadian named John Byrne. So this is like some of his early work, especially with superheroes. And reintroducing us to Misty Knight, who had appeared earlier in the Marvel premiere. So this is the first appearance of Misty Knight. It's the first appearance of Colleen Wing, who you may have seen in the TV shows. But I like the way that John Byrne just fleshes her out more than she was in the Marvel premiere issues. So there she was just kind of a baddie that knew martial arts, but here it's a lot more fleshed out. I love it. But this is what starts the friendship of Colleen Wing and Misty Knight, who later, of course, becomes the daughter of the dragons. Now, speaking of first appearances, there is one character that I have to talk about here that made a first appearance, but it's not until later. No, I'm not talking about Scimitar. Not until just a little bit later, but just check out this artwork. My gosh. It's just so awesome. I'm surprised they never did an oversized hardcover collection of this. I realize that, yes, the Marvel Universe by John Byrne has some of these stories in there, but it would just be really cool to have all of this collected in an oversized hardcover, kind of to match up with that Luke Cage omnibus. And I love the way that John Byrne not only can draw the human anatomy so well, but also settings. You know, you go anywhere from the mystical Kunlun to the streets of New York, and there's a big difference here. There is a little... I love this. This is what I wanted to talk about. How much that looks like the Days of Future Past cover. So awesome. I bet he's always been a big fan of that. And just check out this. Just following the figures along. That's so cool, man. He's an artist, that's for sure. There's the Wrecking Crew. So by now, yes, he is tied more to the Marvel Universe. And the sales started dipping, so they had to start throwing in characters to make sure that the sales picked up. Unfortunately, they didn't, though. So in issue number 14... Oh, no, this is issue number 13. So in issue number 13, there's a little cameo right here. Iron Fist in Canada, a bizarre new supervillain, and the deadliest, most terrifying menace of them all, Snowfire. No, that's not right. The deadliest, most terrifying menace of them all is Sabretooth. The title of the book is just called Snowfire. But I love this little cameo. People count this as a cameo, people that collect single issues. Is that a cameo of Sabretooth? Oh, he looks so menacing. Used to have that issue many moons ago. As a completist, I loved it. But yes, here it is. Sabretooth. Issue number 14. His first appearance. created, of course, by Chris Claremont and John Byrne. And then the final issue showing the X-Men. This is such a freaking important issue in X-Men, and it's not collected in the Omnibus. It is collected in the Epic collections. But this showcases the X-Men's return from space for the very first time. You have Wolverine, he's still wearing his Fang costume. You have Jean Grey, she's still trying to get used to the Phoenix power. But it's really cool that this is where they show up, again, trying to bump cells of Iron Fist. And it ends on a cliffhanger that isn't resolved until Marvel Team Up. So you have Marvel Team Up, Spider-Man, of course, and someone else. And this is the story of Iron Fist. And then eventually to wrap up that story, because it's always Spider-Man and someone else in every issue. It has to be different people in every issue. You have Spider-Man and the Daughters of the Dragon. So this is Colleen Wing and Misty Knight. Misty Knight in that outfit. Ooh, boy. I believe, I want to say, oh my gosh, I can't remember. But I want to say this is the first interracial kiss between two ongoing characters, long-term characters. I know Killraven had the first, I think, interracial kiss. And please, somebody correct me if I'm wrong. But I want to say that this one had the first interracial kiss between two characters that have been around established for a long time. And then you get the extras in the back. All the way back here, you have original artwork. And there we go. John Byrne's art. And then some sketches from Marvel Team Up 64. Or this is actually on the back of Marvel Team Up. Can you imagine buying that page and then getting extra sketches signed by John Byrne? So the book has 528 pages. This, again, being the third printing. The Quad Pro was the first printing. So I know a lot of people are upgrading to this one. This one, however, the price has increased to $49.99. Iron Man, Epic Collection, The Return of Tony Stark. This is volume 18. 1993. Most of the time they show you the dates here, and it's 91 to 92. 92 to 93. No, there was so much love in 1993 for Iron Man. And why? Well, that's because this is 30th anniversary. Next year will be his 60th anniversary. So, this collects right off the bat with an anniversary issue. I remember this one. This had the, Prism holographic cover. 30th anniversary issue right here. 290th issue of Iron Man. And it is the return of Tony Stark. It's 48 pages. Len Kaminsky writing most of the stories in here. Kevin Hopgood drawing most of the ones towards the beginning. So this collects Iron Man 290 to 297. Iron Man number 14. Or annual number 14, sorry. Marvel Superheroes. There was an 80th anniversary of the character of Iron Man. So there is a lot of Marvel Superheroes in here. Now, the entirety of Marvel Superheroes number 13 is collected in here. It's the 80-page Iron Man special. You also have the Iron Man... it's just called the Iron Manual. That's all the way in the very back. And then material from Marvel Superheroes 2, 8 through 9, 12, 14 through 15. One of those drawn by the legendary Steve Ditko, also plotted by him. Also the introduction of Squirrel Girl, which we'll get to. But first of all, what do I mean Tony Stark is back? Isn't James Rhodes Iron Man? Because Tony died? Well, no, of course Tony didn't die. He faked his death. He had put himself in cryogenic sleep until Tony or Stark Industries developed a cure for his illness that he had. And of course, a lot of his friends feel betrayed. Mainly Rhodey, right? Rhodey feels betrayed because he left him in charge of Iron Man. He left him in charge of so much, and Rhodey thought he was dead, but he wasn't. Now, he doesn't come back 100%. He's still not able to move, so he's almost in a paralyzed state. He's able to control Iron Man with this head unit. I love this head unit. Just the simplicity behind the technology back then. Keep in mind, this is 1993, but still ahead of time. Or ahead of its time. He's able to control it through remote control. So he's back as the Iron Man armor. And like I mentioned, his friends feel betrayed, or Rhodey does, until he saves his life. All these specs, man, Kaminsky's research that he had to do, it's actually really solid. For the time, way ahead of its time. And now they are reunited to fight side by side. James Rhodey with the War Machine armor, and Iron Man with the remote-controlled Iron Man armor, or Tony Stark, rather. I love this right here, where, dude, he's so mad at him for lying to him about being dead that he's just taking off his armor. He's like, I don't need this crap. He's just walking around in his underwear. I gotta say, I would love to see Len Kaminsky's scripts, because it seems like in every other page, somebody's always cursing someone else out. And, you know, they had to censor it, of course, for this, for comics. And, of course, slowly but surely, Tony Stark is able to move again. He's able to move slowly, one thing at a time. So that's what this is. This is about the return of his character. Now, during this time, of course, his cousin was in charge of Stark Industries. What's his name? Morgan Stark. And he just fires him on the spot through via FaceTime right here. Dude, I love this line right here. Not the cursing. You always thought you were better than me. I always was. I still am. How Tony Stark is that? Now, Morgan doesn't have the happiest of endings, even though he just lost his job. Worse and worse things kept happening to him. This is the these are the Eaters, right? The Technovore. This is really interesting. Even though it's not labeled as an Infinity Crusade crossover, the Goddess makes an appearance here in this issue. Now, the next issue is labeled as an Infinity Crusade crossover, this one here. But I find it interesting because, you know, the Goddess was approaching people with religious beliefs like Storm or Shaman. It doesn't matter who they believed in, as long as they believed in a higher power. Tony Stark was always a man of science, but her reasoning for approaching him to join her was pretty interesting. I like that. And, oh man, I forgot about Modam. So you have the character Modam. She's back. When did she appear? I think it was an issue of Quasar. And, of course, you gotta throw in the X-Men's Omega Red. I'm sure they made a big deal. From the pages of X-Men, Omega Red. He comes in to fight Modam. Miscommunications with Iron Man. They fight. And you get the idea. I believe this is the annual with the Masters of Silence. Yeah, this is the annual. Again, written by Len Kaminsky. And this introduces us to a new character, a Face Thief. Because this was the annual that came polybag. Then there was a trading card. And it was the annuals across Marvel Comics that were introducing us to new characters. Like Uncanny X-Men Annual 15 was the first appearance of Executioner. But I can't go any further. I remember this issue. I remember buying this issue. This is Marvel Superheroes Winter Special X-Men. Namor and Iron Man. All I saw was X-Men. I was like, well, I gotta have it for my collection. It's Eric Larson on the cover. I bought it. And there wasn't that much X-Men. But what I remembered was this right here. The introduction of this character. Now, at this time, this is 1993. I was in high school. I was a freshman in high school. And I knew of Steve Ditko. I had read some reprints of single issues of his stuff. There was Marvel Tales, of course. I did not recognize his artwork. And I thought this was some amateurish new artist. And I remember being at lunch with my buddy Matt and Mark. And we were talking about this issue. And we're like, dude, that horrible artwork. It's like Marvel's hiring these absolute hacks. Or whatever the 90s terms was for hacks. I don't know. People still use that. What the hell was wrong with me? I'm talking about the legendary Steve Ditko. We were talking about the legendary Steve Ditko. We just didn't know. Because it's Steve Ditko and Plot Pencils and Inks. And Will Murray doing the script. And then Christy Sheely doing the colors. But I think it was just the art of Squirrel Girl, her design. I mean, looking back at it, I could see the Steve Ditko, of course. But back then, I just thought it was a brand new artist. I didn't even look at the credits. I was just like, oh my gosh. I hope they don't start hiring these people. Because, I mean, we were all about the extreme artists back then. We were all about Eric Larson's and Jim Lee's and Will's Portacios and Todd McFarlane's. So, yeah. Pretty stupid kids. This, I think, is written by Kurt Busiek. Yeah, James Fry is the artist on this one. And Kurt Busiek writing some of the stories. These, again, from the Marvel superheroes. Just the Iron Man parts. Unless, of course, it's the Marvel Superheroes 80-page spring special, the All Iron Man issue. And here's all the creators behind this, mainly Kurt Busiek and Jim Owsley, who, of course, is Christopher Priest. And then you have some pin-ups here. But I wanted to talk about one more thing before we jump on to the last book. This is David Anthony Kraft right here in this particular story. So I'm glad that they're all collected in here, but it feels like half of the book are these Marvel superheroes. Here's the Iron Manual. This is so cool. Written and drawn by Elliot Brown. My goodness. The amount of research and detail that had to go into making this. This is a really cool look inside of, or behind the scenes of Iron Man's armor. And where he stores it and the power levels. It's very cool. It's all in here. And then you get Marvel Age stuff and original pages. And this is the poly bag that the annual came with, and then the trading card. So the trading card's collected in here. Not the greatest of scans, but yeah, still there intact. 488 pages. This book retails for $44.99. Last but certainly not least, Ghost Rider Volume 4 of the Marvel Masterworks. And like all the other Marvel Masterworks, these are beautifully put in one package. You have this faux leather, Ghost Rider, Marvel, Ghost Rider 4. Nothing on the back. So collecting issues 36 through 50 of Ghost Rider. And again, just to reassure people, this one is printed at the Donnelly printer, where I think for the last few years, all the Marvel Masterworks have been printed. I think there was, somebody was asking me because they had heard that the iMac printer was printing these. And I don't have Tomb of Dracula Volume 2. I didn't get sent that one, so maybe that one? I don't know. I don't know where people heard this. One of the greatest introductions I've read from Jim Salicrup is found in this book. Because it's an introduction he didn't want to do. He's like, no, the work speaks for itself. I thought it was a funny introduction. Not so much about the behind the scenes of everything going on at the time, but pretty much just what, like, kind of giving you an idea of what an editor and assistant editors do. Like the logos and the things they don't get credit for. And then he himself talks about how he started giving credit to people. I thought that was cool. He's still working in comics. He was an editor at Paper Cuts, people that brought over the Smurfs. And now Paper Cuts and Mad Cave Studios have merged. But anyway, I got to meet him at New York Comic Con. Hell of a guy. We talked for a long time just about, not even the bullpen or anything, but just life in general. And in the introduction, he does write about Mark Grunwald and how he had a different editing style. I thought it was really cool. So issues 36 through 50, we're looking at the Michael Fleischer era of Ghost Rider. This book retails for $75 and it has 304 pages. And the Michael Fleischer era, I get why they hired him. So I never read any of these issues. I had not read any of these issues. This was the first time I read, well, I guess a week ago was the first time I read any of these. And I took breaks in between because the stories got to be repetitive. They were fun and they were hokey at times, but they got to be a little repetitive. It got to be just Johnny Blaze, Ghost Rider, of course, just wanders the Midwest, encounters some country folk. Some of them are devil worshippers. Some of them are bike stuntmen. And something breaks out. Somebody gets kidnapped. He goes and rescues them. And that's pretty much a lot of what the stories are about during this time. Here's the Flaming Cyclist from the Super Circus. There are a couple of standout issues that happen here. And there are some dark elements, and that's why they hired him. I mean, this is the guy that was writing Spectre at the time for DC Comics. And Spectre, of course, it's kind of like the Spirit of Vengeance, except a lot darker. Now, they weren't going to change this character up to be like the Spectre. So, Don Perlin supplies most of the artwork in this book. There's a couple fill-in issues by Carmine Infantino. I did want to talk about a couple stories, just two of them, because I'm not going to talk about each one of them. But the ones that stood out to me were this one here, 41 and 42. It's the story of the man who was Ghost Rider. I thought this was interesting. I like stories like this, where pretty much it's Johnny Blaze again. He's stumbling into this little town. He gets hit in the back of the head by a crowbar, and then he awakens with amnesia. So he ends up going to this lady's house named Gina, and pretty much she takes Johnny Blaze back home, because that's what you do with strangers that are walking around. Now calling this guy Frank Ryder. does not remember that he's the Spirit of Vengeance, that he is Ghost Rider. Because through these issues, you see him try to split from the Spirit of Vengeance. Try to separate. As a matter of fact, there was a couple of issue stories in here where they were trying to separate the Spirit of Vengeance from Johnny Blaze and successfully do it. So he's walking around for the next couple of issues. As a matter of fact, this one here, 42, The Lonesome Death of Johnny Blaze. Again, he's walking around as Frank Ryder. And I thought that was a cool idea that, you know, he doesn't remember who he was. He has amnesia, yet he has these miraculous powers. Of course, not from heaven, but from the other place. But that is one that I wanted to talk about. And then we get a couple of fill-in issues by Carmine Infantino, who at this time, I don't think he was even drawing comics. Definitely has a really unique style, but I really like when Tom Sutton inks his stuff. I think it's solid. And these have more to do with the separating the Spirit of Vengeance from Johnny Blaze. Then we get, I think it's a Bob Budiansky cover, maybe? Then we get the issue number 50. And I think issue number 50 is very important to talk about because of the name Ghost Rider. So here he is teamed up with the Phantom Rider, who at the time was going as the Knight Rider, but at one time in his own comic was named the Ghost Rider. Now, because of the popularity of that book, I think it only lasted 17 issues. That was after Marvel had acquired the rights. Because actually, that was a Jim Salicrup story. He was talking about how companies at the time were acquiring names, these licensed names, and like Captain Marvel belonged to DC, then they lost the rights, and then that came back to Marvel, and then they had acquired Ghost Rider from another company, but the sales of it wasn't that good, so they changed the name later on when he came back to, I guess, Knight Rider, and then eventually the Phantom Rider. There's a couple characters from his particular comic. Now, I was familiar with this character because of the West Coast Avengers, or Avengers West Coast, depending on your taste. But it's a cool team up for the 50th issue. It's a big deal to have both of the Ghost Riders on the same screen. I want to say, yeah, he did. He made a cameo in the movie. Oh my gosh, those movies. Yeah. Alright, let's look at the extras in the back. So you have galleries back here from different issues of Ghost Rider. Ghost Rider 11, 3, and Ghost Rider number 12. This celebrated Johnny Blaze's 50th issue with an index of his appearances throughout the Marvel Universe. The original page right here, original art by Bob Budiansky, who again went on to write Transformers. If you want to see a little bit of history of that, that will be on tomorrow on the channel. And then the biographies on the people. I had forgotten that Michael Fleischer had passed away. I think I remember when I was reading the Conan introduction. But there is a bio on Don Perlin and, of course, Carmine Infantino and what other Marvel Masterworks are available. But that's it. That, as they say, is that. So hopefully there'll be a Volume 5. So far, there's no solicitation for a Volume 5, but I hope the sales of this are strong enough to continue this Masterworks line. If you're interested in purchasing any of these books, don't forget to check out our sponsor, cheapgraphicnovels.com, your online home for graphic novels and collected editions up to 50% off cover price. They have excellent shipping and prompt and helpful service. Check out their bargain deals for up to 90% off cover price. And don't forget that CGN also takes pre-orders. That way you don't miss out on the hottest releases. And they are currently running a special promotion for you Minties. If you're a first-time customer, after receiving your order confirmation email, reply back to that email and let them know Near Mint Condition sent you their way. They will then apply a free shipping promotional credit to your next order in the US. Cheap Graphic Novels, your source for the hottest books with the kind of deep discount, quality shipping, and customer service that will keep you coming back for more. And that was the content and page count of each of these books. Let me know in the comments down below which ones you are picking up, if you are continuing the Marvel Masterworks of Ghost Rider, and you hope there's going to be a Volume 5 sometime in the future. If you are getting the Iron Man and Epic collections, if you hope one day you get an oversized hardcover of Iron Fist, and what you think about any of these new series, like Spider-Man Carnage. Did you end up reading Han Solo and Chewbacca? And then, yeah, anybody out there, a Fortnite player that both loves Fortnite and Marvel Comics, because I really think that one is for you. So that's it for me, the Uncanny Omar. So please check out our Patreon and Spreadshop. Amazing ways to support the channel if you can do so. Have a wonderful week. This is a holiday week, so everyone stay healthy and safe out there. Much love.